Yes.
Hi, my name's Rob, and I'm a freelancer for The Independent.
Yeah.
My question is for Javed. Seeing as you brought up Afghanistan, it's obviously going to be an important feature, and I was wondering, as part of the programme, will discussions come up about Afghanistan? And also, in your qualification about the history that prevents South Asian integration, is that going to be a prominent part of the discussions that are going to happen at the conference?
My view is that what happened in the early years, particularly between India and Pakistan, became a heavy weight, particularly in areas of economic cooperation, trade, and so on. But now, the second generation of leadership that has taken over, at least in Pakistan, and I expect the same thing will happen after the elections in India, there is a sentiment to concentrate on economics, and within economics on trade, and let the old problems that they had become very heavy burden on policy making, let them be. Some of them are solvable, some of them are not solvable, and time will take care of them. That is the sentiment, at least that's the sentiment in Pakistan. I think after the elections have been held in India, hopefully that will also become the prevailing sentiment in India. There is an enormous amount to be gained. No bad thing should be seen as a silver lining, but in the recent downturn that we have seen in the Indian economy, and Pakistan has been in an economic recession now for 6 years, if policymakers are convinced that one way of jacking up the rates of growth in South Asia is for the South Asians to work together, then I think it is to their advantage to forget about history and concentrate on the present and the future. And as I said, I have done some arithmetic on this. I developed a model which indicated that the rates of growth would increase by 2 to 2.5 percentage points if that were to happen. Trade is a very important part of this in this equation.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, from Mint. Lala ready?
I think this question is for the chairman. I am Bala representing Mint Asia from the Hindustan Times Group. Chairman, it looks like the university and the academic institutions of these countries is taking a big step forward in trying to bring the importance of South Asians together. What do you think is the role of the government? Will Singapore become what Hong Kong has become to the Chinese diaspora? Will Singapore become something like this to the to our South Asian diaspora?
Well, the Singapore government is very supportive of what we are doing. This is indicated by the fact that we have one deputy prime minister inaugurating. The president comes as the chief guest for the gala dinner. We have 3 other ministers actually involved in various dialogues. So that shows the sort of backing. And we had this same for the last one, because they feel that Singapore provides a neutral environment, what Mr. Burki mentioned, that South Asians, when they go back to the region, there's too much of baggage that they carry. When they are in neutral territory, the common features emerge, whether it is Bollywood, whether it is the language, whether it is whatever else, the business opportunities. For instance, I think Mr. Burki will tell you that he himself feels that if there was investment possibilities by the Indians in Pakistan, it will have a significant impact on the Pakistani. Similarly, the other way around. I remember many years ago when I invested in a container freight station in India, I looked at the Karachi port and I was told, look, if you want, you do it out of Singapore. not out of India. In Singapore, I don't have a container freight station. I have one in India, I've got management there. And if they can't go, then there's no interest for me. So this sort of thing must be addressed. Now, your question was whether Singapore government supports it. Yes, it supports it, and that's indicated by their participation. And it will continue to support it as we go along. Because Singapore, I think the analogy of Hong Kong to China, Singapore being for South Asia, may not be quite correct. Because Hong Kong is part of China. It's, controlled in many ways. Two systems, one country, in practice doesn't seem to work that way. But it is an important component in China, Hong Kong. But in Singapore's case, Singapore is an independent country with its own priorities. But they still feel there's what does Singapore do? It tries to be useful to the world and to be useful to South Asia. At this moment, for instance, South Asia is not flavor of the month. It's far from being a flavor of the month. But we still felt it was necessary to have this convention here at this time, so as to reinvigorate the interest in the region. That's why we are having it here. We are conscious of the fact that people say, oh, South Asia, nothing much happening. India is waiting for an election. Pakistan has got problems. Bangladesh, there's an election coming. So let's not talk about this region. That's the view. But Singapore feels, no, this is the time to look at this region, to see how we can reinvigorate. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Neha, former Al Jazeera, and I'm working independently. I've got two questions. The first one would be about this conference. Is there any kind of a tangible plan of action for the diaspora? Is the convention, have they conceived anything? That's my first question. And the second question, kind of related to what you just said, but I'm curious if by any chance this convention is sort of a soft diplomacy by Singapore for that region.
We are too small to have hard diplomacy, so our entire policy is soft diplomacy. Well, we have certain objectives, and we want to, and that is, as I said in my last sentence previously, to be useful to the world. A country with 600 square kilometers during high tide and 480 during low tide, and with 5-6 million people, cannot aspire to lead the world. But we can be a useful place where people can meet, people can discuss. That's what we want to be. So that's part of the diplomacy. As far as your first question, I'll ask Taeyong to answer.
I don't think we consciously seek to produce any sort of policy recommendations that will come out of our deliberations. But of course, by just getting people to come together, and a range of people at that, policymakers, academics, thinkers, business people, cultural types, I think we hope to create that kind of environment where people actually first get to meet face to face, two, get a good exchange of views, and three, hopefully think of possibilities that could eventually be translated into policies and take it with them, and then hopefully pursue it at their respective countries. I guess that's what we're hoping will happen. We would be presumptuous to say that at the end of this Diaspora Convention there will be 3 outcomes, and I think that would be a bit far-fetched. But from what we've gathered, ideas that are spawned and discussed at this convention, at least from the 2011 experience we've had, already generated some thoughts about how this can be taken further. And if nothing, at least academics and economists like Mr. Javed Burki has written about all these things, and these are discussed and continuously talked about. So our first aim is actually to get people to come together, the right types of people, and two, to really have a good exchange of views and ideas, and hopefully this will be translated to more concrete things further down the road.
Basically establishes contacts, and you do networking, and from that something may result. I'll give you one example, one segment that we have, access to capital. Here we have few very iconic people involved. The chairman of SEBI from India, Mr. U.K. Sinha, the head of the stock exchange in Singapore. You have Piyush Gupta and you have Dr. Narayan. So hopefully people in Singapore, people in the region who come around, looking at ways of either listing Indian companies in Singapore or the other way around, will have a chance to talk privately, establish the network, and then take it forward. But we can't say this is our sole objective. No. We have equally ambitious objective on Mira's segments. We hope out of that will come greater interest of Singapore. Singaporeans have started to read. Long time ago, we were called the cultural desert of Asia. Now, no. Every play that is being shown here, whether it is Taming of the Shrew or whether it is Hamlet, whatever it is full house. You can't get tickets. Similarly, they start to go to library, they buy books, bookshops are thriving. So let's try and interest them also in South Asian literature and also get South Asians to talk to each other on literary pursuits, as it were, and we're very lucky to get somebody like Mira to chair it because she was chairing it, we got more people to come. So there are so many objectives that we have, which I think is the cauldron will churn and something will come out of it. Yeah. Yes, please.
Just one additional point. The chairman said that it's wonderful that we are going to get some major players from India, possibly also from Pakistan, to come and meet with the folks over here in Singapore, and that will get things moving. That's one model. The model that I'm advocating is that for the diaspora people living in the States, people living in Britain, and I know lots of those people, they should begin to see Singapore as a base which they can use to produce structured finance products. Now these are, having worked at the World Bank for many years, these are complex things to do. They need a lot of information, a lot of modeling and so on and so forth. So if a bunch of people coming from Colorado or London or wherever decide that they are going, and I know that some of them want to do this, and a couple of them will be participating in the convention, that they would like to base themselves in Singapore, provided there's some receptivity within Singapore on the part of Singapore's private financial institution to play host and take some risk also. Then this could become, Singapore could become, because of the initiative of these high net worth individuals in the US and in Britain and a few of them in the Middle East, to put together the kind of structured finance that I'm talking about, to do some major capital intensive, management intensive, skill intensive projects to improve connectivity within the South Asian continent.
Mira wants to say something.
I'd also just like to say that this also spills over onto the area of literature, which, is a very subjective subject, but we writers, we meet up around the world at academic conferences that we're academics, at writers' festivals, and mostly we're discussing either purely academic questions or questions that are much more literary orientated. So in that sense, I think this opportunity that we're being given in Singapore to bring writers together to discuss issues of the diaspora is a very unique opportunity, and I see that as having great potential for the future in the same way in issues of connectivity that it will have for business. And I could see this growing and becoming a very powerful segment of this convention in the future, because it is a platform that is quite unique and is not yet anywhere else in the world, in a sense. So I have great hopes for the future and delighted that you've included literature this year.
Thank you. Yes.
Gurdeep Singh from PTA. FDI. Mr. Burki, do you have any number of total investment, development costs required by South Asia and something similar in Afghanistan, and how much really can this 70 million diaspora provide? You say 2 trillion, but I don't think so they will give all of that in that basket.
I'm taking a bit of a risk because the report that I referred to, Economic Intelligence Unit, mentioned a figure, and I think it was something like $1 trillion of investment in Afghanistan in order to rebuild some of the destroyed infrastructure. There are 3 major arteries of communication that have to be totally rebuilt. One is the Salang Tunnel, which connected Central Asia with Kabul. And that was built by the Russians, and in those days it was called the marvel of engineering. The second is the Jalalabad-Kabul highway, which was built by the Americans. And that too, and I have been on that road, and when they say it's marvel of engineering, I saw why that was the case. It's a huge cantilever that sticks to one of the difficult to penetrate mountains. And then there is this, what's called the ring road, connecting Kandahar, Kabul, and Jalalabad. Now, all these are very, very important lines of communication. They are totally destroyed. And to rebuild them will need good engineering, good management, and a lot of money. And various kinds of estimates have been done. And I recall a figure of $1 trillion. Now, if we are talking about diaspora having access to something like $300 billion of savings that they could possibly put into South Asia, that's every year. $1 trillion that I'm talking about is over a period of, I guess, 5 to 10 years. So it is doable for the South Asians if they set their mind to it, and if they begin to see that there are high returns to be obtained by making that kind of investment. You know, even now, all kinds of ridiculous things are happening. One of them is that in the transit trade agreement that was signed between Pakistan and India, Pakistan and Afghanistan, Afghanistan is allowed to use Pakistani roads to export its goods to India, but India is not allowed to use Pakistani roads to export its products to Afghanistan. Now that's the kind of ridiculous part of these arrangements, which could go, should go, if diaspora also begins to put pressure on the governments that you guys are losing a lot of money by adopting these short-term views. I did a paper for ISAS a few weeks ago in which I said China has begun to look west, and this was kind of play on India looking east kind of approach. And I said that the Chinese know that they are resource short, and where are resources available? Afghanistan, with some parts of Pakistan, they're estimated to have $1 trillion worth of minerals waiting to be exploited. China needs enormous amount of gas from Qatar and the Middle East. When I was looking after China at the World Bank, a delegation came from Japan to see me, and they wondered whether the World Bank would be prepared to provide not money, but guarantees. If a pipeline could be laid, that will have to cross 3-4 countries. And so we were interested, and then something happened and it could not be pursued. So there are those kinds of opportunities. And I think what a convention like this does is that it begins to expose the members, the well-to-do, the high net worth individuals, expose them to some of these ideas, and then let them come together, let them start doing the analysis, let them bring engineering, and let them then begin to projectize some of these things. And it is doable. I won't name the person, a very high-level Singaporean investment banker with whom I had a conversation after the last convention. And he said, your ideas are great, but at this point, there is no appetite in Singapore to invest major sums of money in South Asia. So that kind of thing has to be taken care of through education, through greater exposure to the opportunities, through numbers, etc.
I think we can allow one more question and then we call it a day. But if any of the media people want to interview, not only those who are sitting up here, but any of the other scholars who are participating, you are welcome to do that. I think if you contact Nina Ko, she will be able to organize this for you. Yeah? Yes? From New Zealand.
Good afternoon. My name is Subramaniam. I am a freelance correspondent for the New Zealand Indian Newslink. And my question to Mr. Burke is, the topic for today is connecting global South Asians. But in the context of Singapore, as far as diasporic consciousness is concerned, a topic that has come up in the last couple of years was the perception of a bit of tension between foreign expatriates and local Indians. Will this point be taken up at the conference in November, please?
The short answer is yes. These are the kind of things that need to be explored, and that's why you have so many people with very different skills who will be brought together, and they will have an opportunity to meet on the margins of the main events that are taking place. I think what ISAS has done and has accomplished is to raise the profile of this particular subject, and that how this can contribute to the development of South Asia, and how the diaspora community itself can satisfy some of its own sentiment about the old homelands. But at the same time, there is a lot of money to be made. In finance, there's a term that's used very often, the first mover advantage. I believe that the intra-regional type of investments will provide first mover advantage to those who are prepared to take a bit of a risk. And these are not all that many risks. I know from my conversations with the World Bank and Asian Development Bank that they will be prepared to provide all kind of guarantees in order to make sure that the political stuff that associated with any project that passes through several portals will be taken care of by involvement by these institutions. So my hope, my expectation is that these kind of conversations will take place when we gather in November.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. I thank the panelists as well for spending more than an hour here. As I said, if any of you want to interview any panelists or anybody else from ISAS, I invite you to attend the convention, 2 days, a bit long, very tight, a very packed program. We hope you come. My colleague Johnson will tell you all the seats are sold out, but I'm sure he can put a few extra chairs in front and give you some seats. So you should be able to come. Please come and support us and give us the exposure that we need to publicize what is a very good event. Thank you very much.